So, hey, this morning, I was I was going through. I prepared two different sermons for today. So, um, what I'm going to do is go into one that probably be. We'll finish up next week. It'll be a two-part sermon, but there's so much to gather from this parsha. We're looking at wanderings. We're looking at journeys. We're looking at inheritance. We're looking at the regulation for murder. We're looking at regulations for city of refuge. And there's just a lot to take in there. But the one thing I want us to start looking at today is compromise. Compromise is really not a huge significant word in the terms of what we look at it until we turn it internally. We tend to allow everything to be external, and we read the word. I know for years I've read the word, and I'll put it externally rather than internally. We're going to get to one of the scriptures that talks about barbs in your eye and thorns in your side, and that the graphic on that is just horrible. But, we think about the physical graphic. We think about what we would see. And we forget about the spiritual intent of everything that Yah teaches us. Yes, we can apply 100% of it physically. But it's that internal battle that we're going to look at today. And we're looking at where a journey begins. Every journey has to have a destination. Who started out in the Christian world thinking you would be where you sit today? Not in a physical building, but spiritually where you sit. I never thought it. I never thought I would turn everything completely around, but it wasn't, for me, it wasn't for my journey. It was for the Father's destination. And although we haven't reached that destination yet, we have to do what? We have to stay on the path. We have to keep understanding that we're going to grow, we're going to learn more. Every day I think that I would love to know it all at once, but the Father's given me what I can take. If you recall, he talked about he would drive the occupants of the land out slowly from before the children of Israel. Why did he say he would do that? Because they needed those people tending that land, beating back the animals, and keeping it from becoming overtaken by the wild again. I don't know if y'all have ever seen when a house goes abandoned or a building goes abandoned. It doesn't take long before trees are growing up out of the gutters, and before long the windows are coming out, everything's falling apart. But there they had to worry about the animals that would also be against them if the land was cleared out fully before them. And our problem comes that we get to the point that we meet that adversity and we start thinking, maybe I'm not on the right path. Maybe that's not what I heard. We're waiting for that big booming voice that's not going to come. It's not always going to be a thunderclap and the sky gets covered in dark clouds and the ground and the air rumbles. Sometimes it's that still voice. We talked about that last week. It's that small, still voice that's hidden. And we refuse to really seek in and get into that. And that's what we're looking at today. We're looking at Israel at one of their most defining and significant moments in this journey that they've taken. Was it significant that they walked out of Egypt? Absolutely. But now we have them in a time when they're no longer slaves. They no longer have a taskmaster over them. They've made their wanderings through. All of those who grumbled and murmured have died away, so they're no longer wandering aimlessly. They're no longer that fearful generation that refused to enter at Kadesh Barnea. They're no longer that nation who held on to complete compromise. The ones who saw the miracle of the food, the manna, that saw the provision that Yah gave them, but they still grumbled. And they were willing to compromise and not go to the promised land, but turn and go back to Egypt. It was easy for them to say, isn't there food in Egypt? Couldn't we have died there by our pots of fish and food and everything we needed? They forgot the discomfort of their past, of their bondage, and wanted to return to it. But here they are on the plains of Moab, and they've got the Jordan River before them. That promise is right there. It's there. They see the change up in leadership. Moshe's not going. Joshua's going to lead them through. They see all of that change. There's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety. There's some fear. There's excitement, anticipation. What does the land really look like? They had 12 go. 10 denied that they could have it, and 2 praised it. So there's mixed news there, something we see every day in our lives. So that fear also of the unknown was right there with them. Do we face that in our lives? Man, making a change to believe like I believe now, there was a lot of fear and intrepidation in that. I was afraid that I was going in the wrong direction, but I had to believe. I had to set myself not to compromise, not to turn back. Now, we see for 40 years they wandered in the wilderness. And that wandering, that aimless wandering, is now given away to their inheritance. And we look at the instructions they're starting to get from Yah. And he doesn't start out by doing what we would hope he would do. He didn't give them military tactics. He didn't break out a whiteboard and say, okay, when they flank you over here, you go this way. I'm going to give you 10 times strength in your arms, so when you attack, you're going to attack harder. I'll give you jumping abilities so you can jump over them and attack from behind. He didn't give them any special magical powers. Why? He didn't explain to them how to build homes, how to set up cities, governments. He didn't teach them any of that. Instead, he also didn't teach them about or tell them how to plant the vineyards. Why? He had already prepared that for them. He said there's houses there, there's cities there, there's vineyards there that you will take over that someone else built for you. And they are getting spewed out of the land because why? They compromised themselves. They did not serve Yah. He doesn't speak to them about how to go in and each one decide what they get. He told them who would inherit what. But what he does speak about is faithfulness, being in covenant. I think that's something that I'm trying to drive home every time I get up here. Covenantness. Be in covenant with the Father. It's a relationship. It's a marriage. Today's terms, it's a marriage. Are you faithful in that marriage? Now, he speaks to them in Mattot, starting out Mattot. He speaks to them about vows and about removing compromise. He speaks about that holiness because Yah understands something about you and I and Israel that we tend to forget very quickly. The greatest obstacle to our inheritance is not the enemy that's before us. He promised them victory. There was no problem there. But it's a compromise within each and every one of us. And that truth, from the plains of Moab, standing at the east side of the Jordan, to today, this very second, has not changed. Compromise within us is our greatest enemy. If we look at Numbers 30, seems kind of weird to go right in. He's prepping them to go into the land, but he doesn't start talking about infrastructure of the land. He starts talking about infrastructure of their heart. What have they built inside, and what are they willing and allowing to grow and to become a more rigid part of them, their foundation, the very footings that they're going to grow on. He could have started anywhere, but he started with that faithfulness. We have to reside in that faithfulness before we can be prepared for the land. Now, before they cross over Jordan, Yah remind them that his people are people whose words matter. In Numbers 30:2, it says, when a man makes a vow to Yahweh or swears an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. And this is much more than instructions about making a promise. It's more than that. Do we see in ourselves that it reveals the character of the one who gave that command? I am holy, therefore you be holy. We look at Yah and his word and his actions, all the way from Genesis to Revelations. We see one thing that remains consistent, always consistent. Every time I touch that, it's loud. I'm sorry. I'll keep my hands off the wood. We see that Yah keeps his word. Didn't he promise Abraham that he would have many descendants, more than the stars in the sand on the beach? He kept his word in that. He promised Isaac the covenant. He promised the land to Jacob. He promised Israel deliverance from Egypt. And every promise spoken by Yahweh is rooted in his own faithful character. What do we mirror? We talked about what do our actions mirror? What do our words mirror? Are we actually reflecting the holiness and the goodness of our Father in our everyday life? Because of Yah's word and his faithful character, that allowed Moshe to stand with this new generation and confidently say that this can be ours. The Jordan was no longer impossible. Looking forward, Jericho could not stand. Why? Because they faithfully did what Yah told them to do. The nations may appear stronger. What did they say? We could go in, we could take it, but we look like grasshoppers in our own eyes. So surely we look like grasshoppers to them. But that fear was gone. The nations were no longer stronger because it wasn't their might. It was the might of the Father. And what did he say? I will carry you through. This is your land. I will clear the inhabitants. The inhabitants. And there was nothing, and still is nothing, that would keep him from fulfilling his covenant. Now, the question isn't whether or not Yah will remain faithful. It's whether you and I will remain faithful. Where do we stand? Man, it comes out in our business decisions. It comes out in our home life. It comes out with our neighbors. It comes out with the people we deal with each and every day. What are we showing to them? Yah was trying to make sure that they were grounded in integrity and keeping his word. If he's going to keep his word down throughout the ages, we see when he speaks, he does. And he expects us to do the same. And that's what, integrity, I think someone said last week, we mentioned integrity, and it's when no one else is looking. What do you do? What do you do in that time? Do you just kick the can, or do you pick it up and drop it into a trash can? I know that's not a sin, so let's relay it to a sin. Do you mutter those words that would break someone down? Do you let the eye wander? Do you follow up on lust? And lust can be in many things. Do you fall to the sin that comes before you? We talked last week about how the eye causes us to want the things we see. We start to glorify the things we see, even if they're not able to be glorified. Now, the land wasn't anything magical, right? It was blessed. No magic to that. It was blessed. It took 2 men to carry the fruit back. So it was a blessed land. and it was there waiting for them. It wasn't that, excuse me, it wasn't that it was their possession if they went in and fought for it. It was already their possession. It was already given to them. It was their inheritance. And he's speaking out of obedience and them staying in a relationship. Now, if they were going to go in and enjoy the blessings of the land, they had to walk faithfully with Yah. Because we see that the occupants who did not walk faithfully with Yah, although he allowed their land to be blessed, think about this for 1 minute. The very enemy that they had to go and drive out was the enemy that Yah blessed to live in a land of milk and honey. It didn't suddenly become. Do you see your enemy prospering sometimes? And you can't understand why? Man, I talk to Yah about that all the time. I'm driving into Buckhead. I'm seeing these $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 vehicles, and I'm going, why? They don't go to our church. They can't be with us. They can't believe you like I believe you. Why are they blessed, Father? What about me? Turns our eye, doesn't it? We forget what our inheritance is, because this is what matters to us right now. We tend to lose sight of the kingdom that is to come. And I'm going to get there. It may be next week, but we're going to get into that. Now, if Israel was going to enjoy blessings that aren't just suddenly abounding up, he didn't say as soon as you cross the Jordan, the grapes are going to be this big, size of watermelons. He didn't say that. It was already there for them. Their enemy was enjoying all of that blessing. And Yah left them there to tend the land and subdue the animals. But it was their inheritance. So I want us to think about that, because they had to leave the land because they didn't obey. What did Yeshua tell us in John 14? If you love me, keep my commandments. Very simple. One of the hardest things for us to do. But look at what he's talking about in this. That's covenant language. When he's talking about that, we want to see the order he's talking about it. If you love me, then you will become obedient. We will be in a relationship together, and you will be faithful to me. To him, not the world. It's never, and that obedience is not about us earning salvation or earning covenant. Can we be obedient and still miss the kingdom? Where's your heart? It's not about action alone. It's not about action alone. If it were, there's some great people out there who spend almost every cent they have to do something for someone else. And are very kind, very nice, way nicer than I am. Who said you can say that again? Thank you, Caleb. Love you, brother. But it's not about that obedience is going to earn us salvation, but that obedience is the fruit of being obedient. That salvation is the fruit of being obedient. That covenant. If we could just get that in our minds and see that it's not everything outward. It's not everything that we face. You know, I get up, I came in this morning, and the first thing I said to Leo, and I'll admit it was not where I should have gone when I first came in. I said, man, I'm tired. My body's tired. I'm worn out. It's been a rough week. And then I came up here and felt like I should lay down and go to sleep before everybody got here, because I was allowing that to come in. My battle is external, but I'm allowing it to become internal. And I have to get away from that. Now, Yeshua said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. My heart, my body, my spirit felt defeated this morning, just extremely defeated. But fortunately, I've got to talk to everybody. We got praise and worship going up here. I got a second breath, and it felt good. But What happens when we start speaking? Where are we on the act of living out what's in our heart? How do we portray that? You know, we see that Yeshua did say, out of the abundance of the heart. What we speak reveals what's inside our heart. The actions we have, even how we hear somebody. Think about that for a minute. Somebody could be saying something good to you or warning you about something, and the first thing you want to do is bite at them, and you realize, God, that was meant for my good, and there I am, letting my heart be sour, my heart being hard, and I'm biting back. That revelation of our heart, what are our promises? What are our conversations? What's our worship? How is our worship affected by the condition of our heart? It's no longer as sincere. It's no longer as deep. Does it affect our prayers too? Do we suddenly, now we're not asking for what we know is the right thing to ask for, Yah's will in our lives? Do we petition? Do we ask? Do we give him the things that are bothering us, the things that we're falling under? Yes, we should be doing that. But how often do our prayers become a complaint list rather than a petition to the Father? How often do we start out with, hey, I need this and this and this, and I need prayer for this, and this is going to happen. Now you've got to fix this, and I'll take care of this for me, and I've got this going on tomorrow. And then Tuesday, we tend to start building a complaint list. We tend to start building within ourselves a list of grievances that maybe the Father should do for us. And with allowing that to reveal what's happening inside of us, we look at where James wrote. I didn't get the scripture. James wrote that the tongue is a small thing, but it guides the whole body like a rudder guides the ship. Think about that. What are we professing? Are we professing failure in our lives? Are we professing that we don't have the faith to continue on, the strength to continue on? Most times we do. We have the ability to cause within ourselves failure. We have the ability to cause within others failure by speaking out of turn. But let me ask you this morning, have we allowed, even just in the few hours we've been up today, have we allowed our speech to even be a hindrance to ourselves? How about throughout the rest of the week, moving up to this point? Have we allowed people to hear us speak things that are unkind, untrue, unworthy? Or have we lifted up the Father in all things? It's not always easy. You know, we start out, we may come here, get energized, and we may get to sit down, and during Oneg, we get to speak to everybody, and we build ourselves up, and we're full of fire and energy, and we leave out of here, and it's gone. But we have to keep lifting that up. When we meet people, do they know that we are a child of the King? That we have a different set of beliefs from the world? That we have the ability to affect, to move forward with lifting somebody up instead of breaking down? I'm really quick to have a quick, decisive word. Now, I apologize for that. It's me. It's just who I am. I may rethink it, go back and have to apologize. Sometimes I apologize, sometimes I don't. But there always has to be that thought that whatever I do, whatever I say should reflect the Father in all things. And we read in the beginning that he hasn't failed. He hasn't changed. What he says he will do, he will do. So in our spiritual lives, is our yes a yes and our no a no? That may seem really simple, but can we stand in that promise each and every time? If y'all can, I need the prayer because I don't always. I let the old man come out and we have discussions that might not be comfortable for a lot of people, but sometimes we have to go into that direction and pray that I haven't ruined my witness for the next time I get to talk to that person. But we see that, let's go back real quick to Israel. They're going in to possess the land. Instead of being lifted up and saying, you're going to go and you're going to get these grand houses, the cities are already there for you, the vineyards are waiting on you. Now, Yah, again, he begins to speak about their enemies. And at first, this may seem obvious. Of course, there's going to be enemies. The land's occupied. They've already got the 10 spies witness from that. The nations are strong. The cities are fortified. But there's something we need to pick out of that. Yahweh wasn't as concerned about the strength of the enemies that Israel was going to face as he is about the influence of Israel's enemies that they would have on them in their spiritual life. He was more concerned about what they would teach them on the inside. Could they overcome physically? Yes. Yah said they would. He would go with them. He would drive them out. He would help to, I know it's a brutal word, but he would help to slay their enemy before them, drive them out of the land. And he said, when you go, yes, ma'am. That's right. They allowed their... Amen. In Numbers 33, 50 and 50 through 53, Yah tells them, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you are to drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you, destroy all their carved images, all their cast idols, and demolish all their high places. You are to take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given the land to you as an inheritance. Now look at the progression we have. He says, cross over, drive out, destroy, and then dwell. That's a pretty intentional order that he's given them, because he doesn't tell them to coexist with idolatry. He never says, leave a few of the high places, that'll be okay. The really pretty ones up high, leave them alone. He didn't say keep a few idols that are painted nicely. He didn't say, why don't you go in, you can allow just a little bit of compromise. That'll be all right. Absolutely not. Everything associated with the rebellion that removed the first inhabitants of the land had to be driven out and destroyed. And Yah, understanding the nature of the human heart, understands that whatever we tolerate, whatever we leave behind, whatever little sin we try to keep hidden, eventually shapes who we are. It changes us. It doesn't allow us to go that extra little mile. Think about that history. Think about that history. Think about that walk, even through the wilderness from Egypt, when they had to go to war. When the kings that they passed didn't want them to stop in their land. Didn't even want them to get water or grass. They were afraid. Israel, eventually they defeated the armies, They did conquer the kings. The walls fell. Think of Jericho. What if they had only marched around 4 times and said, it's really hot today. I got sand in my shoe. I left my good jacket at home. I don't have the right shofar to blow today. Oh, somebody left the matches at home. We can't light the candle under the basket. Compromise. It's something that sometimes we hold near and dear to our heart, and we just can't push it out. Now, what brought the walls of Jericho down? Yes, the faith of the people. And that faith became diminished many, many times. Was it the act of walking around? People had been walking around that city for years. They had gazed at the walls. It was a wonder of the time. A greatly fortified city. How many times had people walked around and around that city? Probably. But it took doing it the way Yah said to do it without compromise. Without compromise. But what that compromise finally did to them was caused them to fall, just like we fall. Man, we look back at Israel and we go, it's easy to be that quarterback, that armchair quarterback. Hindsight 2020 is cool. We can look at, oh, I wouldn't have done that. Boy, I sure wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have, oh, if Yahweh told me to do that, I would have, yeah, we would have done the same thing. What finally took them down, it was not the strength of the enemies within Canaan. It wasn't the physical strength that took them down. It was the seduction, the spiritual strength that overcame them and caused them to fall. It wasn't by manly might or power. It was by seduction, failure in the heart. The greatest victories in Joshua were not won with the larger armies. They were won through obedience. Think of Jericho. Likewise, the greatest defeat in Judges did not begin on the battlefield. Man, they began in the heart. How hard is it to motivate us, to drive us into that way? How often does Yah have to nudge us and make us go? Israel began, I keep saying Israel. Can I say we? And y'all understand that I'm talking about Israel? This isn't past. This isn't past tense. This is present. So Israel began to admire, we begin to admire what Yahweh told us to destroy in our lives. They borrowed the customs of the nations, even though he said, do not learn to serve your God the way they served their God. Yet they did it. Are you surprised? Have we done that today? Absolutely. Absolutely. They adopted their way of worship and they enjoyed it. So you get that truth mixed with falsehood, and little by little, what was supposed to be driven out within our hearts, that battlefield that is our heart, now has become welcomed in. Yes. Christmas trees and Easter egg hunts. What's wrong with that? I'm kidding. But isn't that's how compromise works in our lives? Man, compromise comes in really soft and sweet, has a good lilting voice. It's very methodical and very musical, and it's just, we get lulled away. Do you think the serpent's speech when he spoke to Eve, you think he had a gravelly old voice like, think of somebody, Columbo or something like that? Louis Armstrong. Do you think he had that kind of voice, or do you think it was a nice, soft, lilting, comforting voice? Surely you won't die. Surely you won't die. Yeah. It whispers to us. It doesn't come in and scare us. It lulls us into that false sense of security. It brings us slowly to our death, and we're happy to go. Because we fall into sin, and we know what the wage of sin is. It's death. That voice of persuasion, it tells us that only one exception, or I'm sorry, it tells us that one exception will not matter. But you can do this. You do all the other 10. You do 9 of the other 10. So, one time's not going to hurt. But that one overlooked command will not change anything. One hidden sin will remain hidden. It'll lull you into that. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. This one time. But compromise never remains content to stay small. I was able to say that. Compromise never remains content to stay small. It wants to grow. It wants to continue. It wants to take over. Think about the governments that have always wanted to see the United States fall. Let's talk about physical for a moment. We've been told that they would not do it from an outward way militarily. They would come in and subvert our government and change us from the inside out. And that's happening today. You and I there's really nothing we can do about it. All we can do is pray to the Father that he prolongs those things happening as long as he can. Pray for the nation that it changes, that it can fall back under the blessing of the Father. Because no matter who's voted in, good or bad, your candidate, my candidate, somebody else's candidate, it's going to be what the Father would have it to be. And falling under the cursings or falling under the judgment of the Father is not good. We see that now. Because that always asks for more. Sin always eats a little bit more out. It'll take your drive. It'll take your stamina. It'll take your ability to reason within what the Father has you to do. It'll make you guilty. How hard is it to stand in the face of the living God when you have sin on your breath? Numbers 33 and 55 comes out to us as a very sober warning. It says, but if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land before you, then those you allow to remain will become barbs in your eyes and thorns in your side. They will trouble you in the land where you dwell. I'm giving you a blessing. Are you clearing the way? We talked about clearing your heart, clearing everything spiritually last week. You have to clear the way so that it's inhabitable by the Father. He's not trying to make us strong enough physically to go into the kingdom. He's trying to make us worthy to go into the kingdom, that he can dwell amongst us and we can dwell with him. Yah doesn't say that they might become a problem. He didn't say some of them aren't going to like you. What he did say is they will become a problem because our compromise always has consequences. Israel wasn't defeated because Yah failed them. Let that sink in for just a second. Israel wasn't defeated because Yah failed them. We are not defeated because Yah fails us. We're defeated when we fail Yah. Strong words, words of correction, but they're very true. Now, we have always struggled because we tolerate what Yah has already judged and deemed as wrong. Yet we'll coddle it. We'll allow it to grow. But before we can be hard on anyone else, especially Israel, Doesn't it tell us something about looking in a mirror? That's hard to do. It's hard to stand up and say, you know what, I might be wrong. We might even say, hey, I don't have idols in my house. I think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to hit on the teaching where I'm bringing back a part to where it said when David was being hunted by Saul and the people came in and he took his idol off the wall and hid it under the cover. Hello, King of Israel, what are we doing? Man after God's own heart. Do you think maybe if he had taken some of that away sooner? That's where we're going with that teaching, and I want y'all to kind of think about it. He was crowned and anointed, and some 13 years later took the kingship. He ran from Saul, ran from Saul, ran from Saul. Chased after Saul, ran from Saul. But now we're seeing that he had idols actually in his house. Could he have shortened that time between anointing and crownship? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know that the word really tells us that. But there's that looking at that, you know, we say, okay, I don't have an idol in my house, but idolatry is deeper in our hearts than it is a carved stone. Anything that competes for the affection, trust, or obedience that belongs to Yah is an idol. Ball team, race car driver, new truck, new boat, any of that. Next week, man. Any of that stands in front of us. Sometimes they're visible, sometimes they're hidden within our heart. Man, sometimes it's the things that we don't consider an idol. How about pride? Patting yourself on the back, lifting yourself up higher than you need to be. Greed. I almost didn't write this one down. I erased it once and put it back in there. The need to always be right. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. How about unforgiveness, secret lust, love of comfort for more than obedience, and fear of man more than fear of God? It's not always a carved image. When I was deeper in sin, I know we're always in sin to some point, but when I was deeper in sin, I never had a carved image in my house. I never had stone stacked that I called something and worshiped and prayed to. Never had any of that. But I was still falling behind. There was something that was in my heart that kept me separated from the Father, that had me diverted, had my attention, my gaze, my sight diverted, and wherever my sight was where my heart was. So looking at that, you know, we're going to close out. It's 12:25. I was trying to hold this for 30 minutes. I know, who laughed? Next week, we're going to pick up. I'm going to pick up and go with this next week. Next week, we're going to be looking at where Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh wanted to stay east of the Jordan. And if you get a chance, read through that. I know we won't I'll do an overview of next week's Parsha as we start, but I want to go back to this. Think about what holds you back sometimes. That compromise that wants to hold you back. Because there comes a time when you look back, just like Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh's tribe, when they said, hey, look, this is good land. There's some creeks here, there's some rivers here, there's a lot of grass here, nice flat plains. It's a good place for cattle, and guess what? We have cattle. So we'd be better off here. Oh, you mean not take your promise, not take your inheritance, not take what the Father has prepared for you, but you'll settle for less. What does it tell us? It said before they left to go to battle, They had to fortify their area because of the inhabitants that were in the land. That land wasn't promised. That land wasn't given. The inhabitants were still there that were evil. And it said they had to fortify so that when they came back, their families and their cattle and their possessions would still be there. We lose sight. We compromise. We become complacent. And I don't mean this to be a whipping lesson today. I really don't. It just comes out that way. But the one thing I want us to do is always understand to keep sight. Keep looking. Don't turn your face from what the Father would have us do. Don't compromise. Let me go to the end of this because I have something at the very end I want to add in closing. Boy, this is longer than I thought it was. The reason Yahweh calls us to remove things out of our lives is we see, he said, if you leave them, they're going to become trouble to you. If you leave their idols, you're going to worship them. You're going to let that pollute you. He doesn't call us to remove these things because he desires for us to not have or to not enjoy. He calls us to remove those things so we can experience freedom. The freedom he took them out of Egypt for. So we can experience shalom, the peace of knowing him and being in covenant with him and being in fellowship with him. And once we do that, what do we gain? We gain life. Life more abundantly. That promise of a kingdom that is coming. It's not a myth. It's coming. Don't worry about the giants. They're conquered. Don't worry about the fortified cities. They're going to fall. Don't worry about the actions of your neighbor. They're not going to last. Worry about what's in your heart. What's the compromise that's holding you back today?